this. My name is Sean Hill. I'm the executive chef of Intuit Plano. Um, it's a pleasure for me to join such a tremendous account of Juneteenth. As a child, I grew up with my family celebrating this and, watching my grandmother and my grandfather learn the heritage of what this truly meant to them and what it continues to mean to me as I pass it down to my girls and for them to get a true understanding of it. And hanging out by the pool. So, item that's been around in African American heritage for hundreds of years. This was actually brought from Africa. It was modernized. If you eat African cuisine, you know it as fufu. It's basically cornmeal mush. They eat it in a different way. Use it as a bread. Most Africans use it as a utensil for their food. But here in America, we took it and made it into cornbread. So in the South, this recipe traces back to Charleston, South Carolina. If you do your history on it, with our ancestors, and came more a necessity in the fields as they were, working fields for the plantations that they lived upon. It was named, it was hot water cornbread, but they really got famous by calling it a hoe cake. And how that became a hoe cake is because they didn't have any skillets or pans in the field, so they took the hoe and put it over a fire, and they made the hoe cakes on the hoe, so they could have
Hey chef, it seems like you're cutting out a little bit.
Also, this recipe I will share on.
Uh-oh, did we lose him?
Can you guys hear me?
Hello? I can now, yes.
Okay. I don't know what happened. Sorry. But I'm going to share this recipe with you guys, and hopefully we'll also add it on Slack, and it'll be available throughout the company networks of different social media. So if you want it, you're free to go and check it out. Little history with this recipe that I'm going to use today. It's my grandmother's and her mother's before that, but my grandmother taught me this recipe at a young age. It was probably one of my favorite things in the world to eat. Still is, and I always give her credit that I'm the professional chef. I've been a professional chef for 24 years, and I have no idea how her cornbread tastes better than mine every day. And I went to school for it and everything else, and I still can't beat her cornbread. So, I'm going to switch up and push this over so you guys can see the ingredients. Let me bring this down a little bit. Can you guys see that? Okay. So the first thing that we're going to have is white cornmeal. Some people use one yellow, refined, or different things, but I like to use both. I think it gives it a better a different softer. If you have sugar, have butter, salt, and then flour. And then of course, over here already working, I have boiling water, hence the hot water cornbread. First thing we're gonna do is add our cornmeal to our bowl. And this is a cup of white, and this is a cup of yellow. I'm gonna add my, this is a teaspoon of salt. I have 2 tablespoons of sugar. And then I'm gonna add 4 tablespoons of butter. I choose to use sweet, unsalted butter. You can use whatever. In my grandma's days and in her recipe to this day, it's lard, but we try to eat a little healthier. So we're not gonna use lard, we're gonna use butter. So once we get those ingredients in there, we're going to add our hot water. And this is something that I can tell you right now, it's no measurement to it. It's not going to be any measurement to it. If you look at a recipe and it says it's a measurement to it, don't use that recipe, because when making hot water cornbread, it's to your feel. I mean, you know, we all know we have those recipes that we get from our parents or grandparents. We say, hey, can I get that recipe? And they tell you a pinch of this or a splash of that. You left not knowing what? You know, I mean, you know, in culinary school, they always have us make things and break it down. But, you know, when you're dealing with our older generation, they don't write anything down. And they can go make it 5 times, it's going to be the same way. And that's just, this recipe is going to be by your feel. Some people like it a little bit looser. Some people like it more. I like mine to be a little bit thicker, so that I can either make whole cakes with it or make a whole cake of hot water cornbread with it. So if I can come over here, see if I can show you that. But it looks like grits. If you're gonna aim it at anything else, it's gonna look like softened grits. But the reason I want it a little wet is because I'm gonna bring it over and I'm gonna have this, remember I had flour. So I have 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, unbleached, no self-rising, please, or you're gonna have puffy cornbread that's never gonna get done. And I'm gonna add that to it. But the one thing is never add your flour to the mixture before adding the water, because then it will create lumps and you'll just have unedible cornbread, because it's gonna scorch the flour, and it's just gonna have a really offsetting taste to it. So make sure you only do that after. Okay, once we get that in there, we're gonna work that in. And the reason I'm adding that flour to this is it's gonna be tight to give us a little bit more body and help mold our cornbread. And I'm gonna turn this out like quick. I have over this, I have 2 tablespoons of canola oil that I'm gonna add to my pan. I'm gonna heat up, and we're gonna get that heating up. And if you give me 1 second, I'm gonna swing in here and grab a little cornmeal. And what I'm gonna do, it's really no measurement to this, guys. I'm going to tilt this down so you can see. I'm gonna add a little bit of sprinkling of cornmeal on top of that oil. And what that's gonna do is build me a little bit of barrier in between my oil and my cornbread. So when you go to slide it out the pan, it's gonna give it a little bit of non-stickness, and also it's gonna create that barrier so it won't burn. So once we get that heated up, and we're gonna go into, we'll put that in our pan. And it's another debate where, slide this back up so you can see me. It's another debate where people say, well, some people like to bake their cornbread in an oven, or some people like to just do it 100% in a pan. I myself, I like to combine the both. So what I do is I take my cornbread, I start it on the top of my stove to give it body and to crisp the bottom. And then I finish it in my oven to finish it off. Because I think if you try to finish it in the pan, you gotta constantly watch it, because if you don't, it's gonna burn the bottom and then it'll be kind of doughy in the middle. We don't want that. So what I do is I start it on the top of my oven to get that beautiful crust on the bottom. Then I put my oven on about 425, and then I put it on my top rack and let it finish for another 12 to 15 minutes until a knife comes clean. and then you're ready to go. So our cornmeal and oil is working its way back. I'm gonna move this back down so you guys can see it. And I'm gonna lay this into my pan. Take my spatula, swing this over here. I'm just gonna smooth that out. And when a lot of people will say, man, that's a lot of oil, but this cornmeal, once it started to cook, it's gonna soak up and absorb a lot of that oil. And it's gonna give you, it's gonna keep your cornbread moist. It's not gonna be dry. And we're gonna let that cook in that for a little bit and get it nice and golden on the bottom, and then we'll switch over and put it in the oven and it'll be done. Like I said, I usually set my oven to about 425 and anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes and it'll be done. Here on the stove, I always say that once it kind of sets itself in the middle, you'll be able to tell. It'll set itself in the middle, and you'll probably 8 to 10 minutes and it'll be set. And when I say set, it'll be firm to touch on the middle, and then you'll be able to move it to the oven to finish it. This is something that I never had a Sunday dinner without it. I wouldn't even know what Sunday dinner was if I didn't have hot water cornbread, because we always had greens or smothered cabbage or some kind of, my grandma always made gumbos, vegetable gumbos or different things. And, in the South, you always have bread. I mean, you're either going to have, we don't even call it white bread. We call it light bread. So you're going to have one of the two at the table. And most of the times it was either biscuits, cornbread, or light bread. So this dish can be served, like I said, greens, peas, cabbage, sauteed spinach. As a kid, the hoe cakes my grandmother would used to make were something she would do on a Saturday morning, and we would eat them with butter and sorghum syrup. So that's something different for us. That was kind of like a treat to us. I mean, to me, it was better than pancakes. So we ate those things. Like I said, the cornbread's starting to settle a little bit here, but we'll let it work a little longer. And when you're doing this, no need to move it to another pan. If you have an oven-safe pan that goes up to about 400, 450 degrees, it'll be safe in here. Like this is my everyday hot water cornbread skillet that I use. Cast iron is great to use as well because it holds its temperature and it does very well. But this is a all-clad pan that I've had for years, and half of the time if you get it out of my store, it smells like cornbread because it's made so much cornbread in it. So that's our cornbread. I'm gonna let this cook for a little bit and then finish it off, and I'm sure my girls will be in here later to eat it. One of the things that I take pride in is being an African-American chef. When I came up in this business almost 25 years ago, it wasn't a lot of my faces, like at all. So I didn't have, at that time, I'm not going to tell my age, but I can tell you at that time, it wasn't a Food Network. It wasn't a cooking channel. You wasn't doing it to be part of a rich celebrity. You were doing it because you liked it. And of course, the reason I did it was because I wanted some Jordans and I wanted some more Nintendos, video games. So that's why I did it. So, and then I swore I would never do it. And then I went off to college and I got a degree and I hated my job. And then I got back in the kitchen and I've been in it ever since. I started at 13 and I've been in it for a long time and I love it. But, as a small town kid that grew up in Southern Arkansas and, a little bit after the harder days of African Americans in the South, I still remember how food was a given, you know, for us, you know, whether it was Sunday dinner or family coming in town for a family reunion or, you know, a Saturday picnic to go fishing. I remember all those things, and I remember how, you know, you could be having the worst childhood or whatever, or got in trouble, but when it was dinner time, all that was forgiven because you was ready to eat. You knew it was going to be good food. So, you know, the things that I try to teach through my cooking is the ingredients can be whatever they are, but if you don't have the love and the passion for what you're doing, then it really doesn't matter. I tell people what I've worked from San Francisco to New York to Chicago to Vegas to Minneapolis in different restaurants when I was a regional chef for some companies. And I always used to tell my chefs that came on, we can buy you the finest foie gras and fly in the freshest fish from Boston and San Francisco and different places, but if you don't put your heart and your love into your food, it's not going to taste right. And I learned that from my grandmother from a young age and my aunt. Those are the two Gordon Ramsays of my life. They molded me. They, you know, as a child, you always, you know, one of the things my grandmother and my aunt always told me is, and I'm sure y'all have heard this too, as a child, you must stay in a child's place. And, you know, I relish that saying because it put me at a chair in a table, and I watched and I learned and I absorbed. And when I got older, they let me show my skills. Sometimes it was great, sometimes it was horrible. But, you know, taking the time to not try to rush it and make me something that I wasn't gave me the patience to deal with, you know, controlling over 1,000 people as a regional chef. But as an African American that comes in this business, I always take, you know, the things that they gave me, the hot water cornbread, you know, and I've worked with some, you know, some very high-end restaurants in my career and hotel chains. I take this heritage everywhere I go. I think that if we let it go by the wayside and we don't teach our children or we don't teach the world about it, then it'll be just a part of history that nobody knows. I tell people, if you love food and you love your heritage, take a trip to Savannah, Georgia. Take a trip to Charleston, South Carolina. Some of the places where our ancestors first landed on this country. And look at some of that heritage there where, you know, certain items like, you know, golden rice, purple wheat, things that our ancestors planted for survival are dying quickly. That's why I take myself and I have seeds from my great aunt for okra and heirloom tomatoes and things like that. I plant in my backyard now and hopefully pass down to my daughters because they will know where they came from. And you can't get anything more pure or more simple than the things of your past, because it's always going to bring a memory or a smile to your face, whether it was a plate of food or a smell or something like that is going to bring. That's heritage to me. So just sharing this hot water cornbread to you guys makes me smile because I know where it came from. I know the footprints that it in the past where it come from. You know, we all are one. You know, somehow we're traceable back to some tribe in Africa. You know, it doesn't matter if we're living in Chicago. It doesn't matter if we're living in Detroit. Most of us come from the South. Our families immigrated and moved to those areas for a better life. And I just think that, you know, in order, in short, I tell my kids all the time I do this for a reason because I wanted to give them something other. Sometimes they hate me because I pull them in the kitchen and try to show them things because I don't want it to die. I don't want it to fall to the wayside and nobody knows how to make the hot water cornbread or nobody knows how to make the greens that grandma made or the purple whole peas or things like that. And then during this quarantine, in the next few months, I hope to be able to share with my family. I've took this time aside and I'm making a cookbook that's going to be called Dinner with My Ancestors. And I've taken several hundred recipes from my aunts and uncles and my grandmother and my mom, and I pieced them together with pictures of my childhood and stories about my childhood from Southern Arkansas. And I plan to. I have a good friend that I went to college with that's works in the publishing area. I'm not trying to make any money off of this. I just want to be able to. It was going to be a present to my grandmother for her 86th birthday in December. But I'm going to share it with whoever would like to have a copy of it, because I think it not only is going to tell my story, but it's also going to tell the stories of my ancestors. And I'm proud of that. So, I want to thank you guys today for taking the time to join me and making some good hot water cornbread and listening to some of my stories. And if you have any questions, feel free to open it up, and I'm gonna throw this in the oven, and you guys can talk to me and tell me what you want to talk about.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you again for being here today. I definitely did have a question regarding bringing our heritage into your career. Have you ever ran into any issues in your career in trying to bring, our heritage and our culture into the cooking?
Absolutely. In my first few executive chef jobs, I worked in fine dining. One of my first fine dining restaurants that I ran was here in Dallas, and I was a chef partner in that company, and my owner was big on keeping everything French and traditional. And me, I'm great with that. I've trained under that. I know how to do that. But where Texas, everybody wants to say Texas is Texas. It's not South. Well, that's not true. I can use some other words, but whatever. Texas is about as south as Arkansas and Mississippi and Louisiana and Alabama and everything else, because half of the people that live in Texas are from some other state. You ain't gonna find too many more true Texans now than maybe a little. But to answer your question, yes, I've ran into several people that stick to what you do this, make it French. I tell people all the time, a restaurant is whoever the chef is. It's not Italian, or it's not French. If you try to put yourself, I've never been one of those chefs that want to put myself in a box and say, well, all I do is Southern food. I don't do French. I don't do Italian. I don't do Mediterranean. I made myself a global chef where I can take my Southern influences and give it to, if I'm going to make a hummus, something I did for a friend's luncheon not too long ago, I did a hummus, but I did a black eyed pea hummus. Certain things like that, you take your heritage and you lay it into that. And if you know how to cook, you can make those things taste good and you can make it work. So yeah, I've had people say, man, you shouldn't do. I always tell people when I go to a job, and I'll tell you this, I know my worth. Either you can give me that value or I can walk away. And that's how you got to look at life. I'm not going to stop being who I am for a dollar sign. So I'm a Southern kid that grew up in the South. If you want a chef that's going to know how to cook food, I can cook anything you want, foie gras and branzino and lobster and all this stuff. But I also know how to do the other things, and I try to always incorporate that into it somehow kind of way to make sure my heritage continues to live.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me ask open chat. So I don't know if I have any chat questions. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Renika. My question is around the health of the food. Heritage-wise, I get, but a lot of times it comes back that the foods that we grew up with are not necessarily healthy for us. How do you combat that?
Absolutely. Just like I said when I was making the cornbread, like instead of that 4 tablespoons of butter, my grandmother would probably put she don't even measure. She'd say 2 black spoons of lard. And I'm like, what? So, like it's always a heaping of that, or a pinch of this, So I love Southern food. And, y'all can see the top of me. I'm a big boy. I like to eat. So, but I also have to be health conscious. We as African Americans have high blood pressure, congestive heart failure, different things that happen to us. So we have to be aware of what we eat. We can enjoy, for instance, if we eat green or, other cabbage or something, instead of putting that ham hock in there, chicken stock to give you that fat additive to it. Using turkey instead of using a ham hock. Having a smoked turkey, you know, one of my favorite things, a lot of people don't know what it is, smoked turkey butts. That's something great for greens, or you can use smoked turkey wings, you can drumsticks or things like that to lighten the load, not be so greasy, not so heavy. And that's going to give you the same flavor. You know, like I said, using chicken stock, a lot of things that my grandma would look at me crazy for. Wines add a lot of flavor to different things, like sauteing your cabbage with, you know, a white wine, a lighter wine like a Pinot or something like that gives you more flavor. You build layers. You know, the way people cook healthier is building layer and using more fresh herbs give you that without having to pile on the lard or pile on the ham hocks and different things like that, or fat back, or you know stuff like that. You using other alternatives will give you those things right there.
Nice. It looks like we have a question in the chat box. So they're asking, do you have a good supplier for ingredients?
Sure. I mean, it just depends on what ingredients you're looking for. So for is like depends on also what area you live in too. Here in Texas, it's funny, but one of our you know, our brothers and sisters on the Hispanic side, Fiesta carries a lot of African American products, from chitlins to neck bones to oxtails to everything. So if you live in the Texas area, Fiesta you can find a lot of things there. Another place that you can get high quality African American products is Albertsons has a lot of it. And then here in Dallas, we also have, you know, a lot of African American owned smaller shops like Sam's over off of Hamptons. It's you have to look around, but those are two of the bigger markets where I shop when I want ethnic foods for us, because I can't go to a Kroger's and find smoked turkey butts or neck bones and certain things like that. And if I do, they're not the quality of the product I want.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it looks like they asked specifically regarding like grits, sorghum, I don't know what that is, gold rice, purple wheat.
Yep. So sorghum is like a byproduct of corn syrup. So it's just before it gets down to the Miss Burtersworth, that's the refined part of it. So molasses and things like that, they're cooked off longer than maple syrups. So maple syrups come from maple trees, sorghum come from sugar cane. So that's the difference. One of my favorite Anson Mills is a great source for Carolina red rice, golden rice, purple wheat, things like that. If you look them up, it's Anson Mills, and I can put that on the Slacks for you guys as well. Locally, it's a new mill that's coming out of Waco. It's smaller. It's Maxwell's, and they're making their own grits and different rices and things like that. A lot of companies went away from stone ground grits and things like that because it's time consuming. So mass production is a must nowadays. You know, everything's got to be a rush. But Anson Mills is probably one of the best stone ground grits and things like that. You know, growing up as a kid, I didn't know what instant grits were. My grandmother cooked grits that took 30, 35 minutes. You know what I mean? I went to my cousin's house in California and I saw them open a package of grits and put them in a pot and it took like 2 minutes. I'm like, man, this is magic. You know what I mean? So I didn't know what that was. My grandma always had stone ground grits. So it was nothing fancy to me. I just tell people all the time, farm to table is just a slower way of saying heritage food, because I mean, most of it is what we used to eat as we grew up. So those are the different things right there. But yeah, those are two great suppliers. Another place that also Whole Foods has great stone grit, and they carry your Whole Foods wherever you live is going to carry a lot of your local purveyors. So I know that they carry Anson Mills at Whole Foods, so you want to check them out. Yeah, so I mean, you want to check that and see that.
Nice. Opening it up. Does anybody else have any questions? It looks like someone's asking, what are your favorite foods to eat with your cornbread?
Probably number one is greens. I mean, doesn't matter if it's, you know, collard greens are my favorite, but I do eat mustards. As a kid, my grandma, we used to have a green that they used to have us go pick as kids. It's called poke salad. It's like a wild green that Indians used to eat a long time ago. It kind of tastes like spinach. And then we used to have like my least favorite green is turnip green. I'm not a big fan. It's too bitter for me. But my grandma used to mix her greens. So as a kid, she used to mix collards and cabbage together. I don't know if a lot of people saw that before, but that's awesome if you ever want to try that. But I love that. And then, like I said, if my grandma cooked it into a hoe cake, all I need is some butter and some sorghum syrup, and I'm good. So, but greens are my favorite to eat it with. And then, if it's New Year's, I know a lot of people gonna frown, but I still gotta have my bowl of chitlins. I gotta get my luck somewhere. So,
That's interesting. I know my grandma, like the day after she would cook cornbread, she would eat it with buttermilk.
Yes. I didn't know y'all kind of young. I didn't know y'all gonna go there.
My grandma
That's like
did
my
that.
grandma and my grandfather dessert. So they would crumble up hot water cornbread, put buttermilk and a little sprinkle of sugar on top of it, and they would eat it. So, as a kid, I ran from that. I thought it was the most now it's delicious. I think it's great. I didn't know you knew nothing about that, but yeah, my grandparents did the same thing.
How funny.
Chef. Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
hi, this is Annette, and I want to. The last conversation just made me think of something. Most of what you're talking about, I'm like familiar with it. I grew up in Louisiana, so it all sounds familiar. Watching my grandparents, my parents do cook the same way, eat the same things.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you notice that we're losing that?
I do.
Passing that on, because I can speak for myself. You know, I watched her, but I didn't embrace it. I mean, some stuff that we did that I wish I would have paid more attention, and because we grew, we raised our own chickens, we raised our own pork, we grew our own mustard greens. We did all that. I realized I was eating organic before organic was a thing. Now I'm paying all this extra money for organic.
Yeah.
So as my generation, I didn't embrace it like I should. So I wasn't able to pass it on to my daughter. And I'm wondering, are we seeing more of that? I'm like, I don't want, and someone brought up the health thing, and I realize it is good. I mean, now that we know better, we need to do better, but
Absolutely.
it's still our history. I still want it to be out there. I don't want to lose it, even though we need to eat those things in moderation now, for health reasons, but so you see that people are, it's not being embraced or passed down to future generations as it was previously.
You're absolutely right. If I can be frank, and I don't want to offend anyone on this call, but we're talking truthfully about our heritage and about Juneteenth and about African American food. I saw an influx of white chefs taking our heritage foods and becoming millionaires off of it. You can go to Charleston, South Carolina. You can go Charlotte, North Carolina. You can go to New York City, San Francisco, and I'm seeing a lot of our heritage foods being infiltrated into fine dining restaurants, by chefs. And it hurts me because a lot of our generation is not falling back into learning from their elders. I think a lot of us have let that bridge burn, unfortunately. But me as someone that's in my early 40s, and I have daughters that Um, all kids are not prone to cooking nowadays. You know, they cooking to them is calling Uber Eats or running around to some other restaurant or something. But I try to in you know influence them to watch their grandmother. She'll be 86 in December, so she's still mobile. She's blessed to have all of her facilities and everything. So when we go and visit her, I sent them as young girls. I made them go to Southern Arkansas to see the chickens, to see the cows, to see the farm that I grew up on, because I wanted them to have that influence and not be city girls and not know how that is. I mean, they can go out. My youngest daughter hunts with me every year. They know how to fish. They know how to do all those things because I wanted that heritage to continue, because they come from a heritage of very strong Black women who worked fields side by side with my grandfather and cows and chickens and did all those things. So yes, I see a dying age of who we used to be, but myself and several other chefs throughout the country are trying to hold that. You know, we got a grasp on it, but you know, if we don't teach the people below us, then we're going to lose it, because eventually one day we're going to be gone. Nobody came here to stay, so you know, we have to put it in. You know, and that's one of the things I always tell my grandmother. So I wish you would have wrote down half of the things that you know, because it would be an influential part of who we are. And that's why I'm writing and doing the cookbook myself, because I want a footprint of who my family was, uh, and as African Americans to be left for my, you know, my grandkids and great grandkids and whomever. So, and I think that a way that we get to that is supporting your small Black businesses within your community. It's several here in Dallas that instead of running to McDonald's, go, you know, you can't do it every day, but on a Saturday when you're at home and you're off work, go to South Dallas Cafe, go to Rudy's, go to somewhere that's going to teach you or have that heritage, because they die and they get pushed out of their community and they get genocide because a Chili's open up, or you know, a TGI Fridays opens up, or something like that opens up. So we have to support them through that too. But the way that we, just like anything else, how this country is, the people that's protesting in the streets are learning from the people that protested in the streets in civil, you know, in the 60s for freedom and things like that. Same thing with food. If we want them to know it, we got to show it and we got to teach them. We can't, you know, I think a lot of this, my generation has waited for somebody else to give you the answers instead of you going looking for the answers. So putting down YouTube and TikTok and all the things that the younger generation do, and having a generational discussion with them about your heritage is a great thing for people to do. And I think, you know, one of the things that I try to give my girls all the time is history through books, presenting them with books about cooking and different things like that. I myself own over 600 cookbooks, and I go back to learn from the great chefs of New Orleans, you know, that was a part of our heritage, Creole cooking and things like that. So I think having them and learning and teaching them that. But to answer your question, yes, we are falling short on delivering that history to our younger generation. And I think the only way that we can do that is by opening up about history, because a lot of times we know as young Black kids, your grandparents don't like to talk about certain things. They'll tell you, oh boy, oh girl, get out of my face. But sometimes you need to push that envelope and try to get that information, because once they're gone, it's gone. You know, you try to spend more time with them. Get your kids to be around the older generation so that they can learn. What was it saying? Do you have any favorite cookbooks you would recommend for Black chefs? I do. You know, probably one of my favorite, you know, if you guys, one of the most famous restaurants in the world is called Tavern on the Green. And most people do not know that that was ran by a Black man. So if you get a chance to go find a cookbook that's called Tavern on the Green, it's a great source of information. It's going to give you some heritage cooking. And I'm going to tell you somebody that's not of our heritage that is doing a hell of a job of passing on our heritage. And that is Sean Brock. It's a young white boy, a young white chef that's out of South Carolina. He started heritage farming in South Carolina when he opened up Husk and a few more great restaurants in Charleston. And he's doing a tremendous job. He's moved on to Nashville now. I've worked with him a couple of times with some food events and wine events. He's a great chef that you want to look at. He is someone, I'm seeing some people talk about Scott Peacock in Atlanta. It's a lot. I can't tell you how many different great chefs out there like myself that believe in heritage cooking. Atlanta is a hotbed for you to go and look at some of the great African-American driven restaurants in that area. Like I spoke of Charleston earlier. I'll tell you another place, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You wouldn't think a city like that, but it has a tremendous amount of African-American chefs, and Chicago, obviously. And another hotbed would be Las Vegas. A lot of the great chefs in Las Vegas are African-American. They just work for a lot of different corporations like Wolfgang Puck and Gordon Ramsay and different things like that. But they are a great area. It's some great cooking. You go into, I lived in Vegas for several years. You go over to the Washington area where it's a lot of our people. It's some great restaurants over there to look at home cooking and different things right there. Yep. Oh man, I got some foodies on here. Brian, Terry. I mean, golly, y'all know more about chefs than I do. But yeah, it's a tremendous. You just have to do your research and do your homework about. But it's a lot of great chefs, young and old, who are part of this, our heritage and things like that. And that's one thing I support. I support people who support my heritage, whether Black or white. I'll tell you that. And that's why I brought up Sean Brock, Scott Peacock. It's a lot of good chefs out there that are doing the things because they were taught by us. Edna Lewis. These are people that were the cooks in big white houses on plantations, but those younger generation, the Emeralds, the Bobby Flays, most of those cats came through and learned from people that never got the respect of being in front. But the Culinary Institute of America was built off a Black woman's back. Most people don't know that, but she was one of the first highly trained chefs that was sent to France and worked with cooking and came here and then helped develop those things. If you guys, it just takes you doing your homework to look into it and know that a lot of these fancy chefs that you see on TV and things, they learned from some of the best African-American chefs there is, or people that was influenced by them. Paul Perdurn, Emerald, they went to New Orleans for a reason. It wasn't just a drink on Bourbon Street. They went to go learn from some of the best Black chefs in the world. So please, just, my plea to you guys and to say to you is, if you want your children or you want your grandchildren to know about these things, have them take a little time out and do some research so you guys can read some great books. And sometimes, like myself, I've been doing a study about my family. I'm learning things that I had no idea about. And yes, Bourbon Street cooking does hit different, especially if you go to the Popeyes on Canal. It's a lot of different than anything you'll find up here. So, I want to really thank you guys for joining me today. I hope I didn't talk your ears off too much, but I'm passionate about what I do, and I'm passionate about I love to talk about food and also love to talk about my heritage. So thank you again for letting me entertain you guys and make you one of my favorite recipes and I hope I can do it again soon for you guys. But if there's no more questions, I want to thank you guys for joining me today, and I look forward to cooking for you again.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you so much. We have a question. It looks like, are we able to see the finished products?
Yes, we are. I'm sorry. Let me pull it up. We're sitting up here talking, and I forgot about the cornbread. I can smell it, and my kitchen's smelling good right now. So we're gonna pull it out, and I'm gonna get that a little close to this camera so y'all can see that. That's that golden, beautiful hot water cornbread. We see how them edges got good, because I told you that oil was gonna cook off. We're gonna get it nice and crispy on the bottom, and it's gonna be set. Now, if we had a pot of greens cooking right now, which I don't, but if we did, we in the works. But I don't think it's gonna last. My daughter's gonna find some way to eat it. Don't matter if it's just this or by itself or anything else. But that is the finished product right there. And I wish you guys had, smell-o-vision so you could smell it. But it's a delightful smell that brings back a lot of memories for myself.
Chef, I have a question.
Sure.
This has been awesome, and it's sad that I have to go back to work because I'd rather just go cook some cornbread right now. The Asia Pacific Network did a fun event where the chef gave the ingredients in the recipe or ahead of time, and then we made it together. Would you be interested in something like that, of giving us a recipe or the ingredients ahead of time, and then we'd have a session and we can all cook together?
I would absolutely be interested in something like that. So if you guys want to set that up, I can definitely get a recipe over to whomever I need to get it to, and then we can take it from there.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chef.
You're welcome.
Nice. Again, thank you so much. That was amazing, just talking and learning from you. And we can definitely set that up to where we can actually cook with you next time.
Yes, ma'am. Well, once again, I appreciate you guys, and I hope that you guys have a blessed day, and please stay safe and be aware, and y'all have a good day.
And I just wanted to add, please keep us informed about the cookbook. I'd be willing to purchase it. I'm really interested.
Yes, ma'am. I definitely will. When we get it finished, I will let you guys know, and I'll pass it off to whoever I need to get in contact with you, with my Intuit family.
All right. Again, thank you. So this recording will be sent out to you guys, so you guys will have it to reference.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.